Hello, and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your co-host, Patience Jones. With me is
Brian Jones,
your other co-host. Thank you for joining us. Today's episode is another in our Growth Challenges series, and this one is called Getting New Work in a Different Market Sector, which I feel like is pretty straightforward. I don't think we need to explain that title. We're going to talk about, quite literally, getting new work in a different market sector.
No surprises.
No surprises. So, what do we mean by this? Because even though it's literal, let's break it down.
Yeah. So there's a few different things that this could mean. It could mean that you are working on one type of work. So like say you're working on residential projects and you want to move into institutional work. And that might be one. It could be that you are in one geographic location and you want to move into a different geographic location. It might mean that you have a larger firm, but you don't necessarily have a lot of experience in a new particular field, and you're looking to move into that field anyway because you see some business opportunities. So that's kind of the range of things that it might be impacted.
Yeah, I think that's right. So there are a couple of different ways to both figure out how you want to expand and where you want to expand. So we're going to kind of start backwards a little bit, assuming that you as a firm have already decided what you want to expand into. Again, market, different sector, different type of service. So once you know that, there are kind of three different ways to go about making a successful path for your firm to expand into that realm. So the first one is scale.
Mm-hmm.
So explain what that means in this context.
So in this context, it might mean that you worked on a smaller scale project, but you solved the problem of that project really, really well. And people were aware and you've communicated how you solved that problem. And so somebody might be inclined to look at it and said, well, my project is X plus one, so there's a reasonable leap that you would be able to solve that problem. So that's what we kind of mean by scale in this context.
So if that's the kind of expansion that a firm is thinking about, maybe we've been doing smaller multifamily buildings and now we want to expand into medium-sized or very large multifamily buildings. How does a firm convey that to people that are making those decisions? That, we could solve for X, this is X plus 1 or X plus 2, so give us an opportunity.
I mean, the biggest way is to communicate the idea that the fundamentals between the two projects are very similar. You're solving for the same issues, and your ability to solve is what is of value to that particular client. So communicating that and making sure that they're aware that it isn't, the scale is a small component of the equation, but your ability to think about their problem and solve their problem is what they should care about.
I think that's such an important point, is trying as much as possible always to talk about the problem that you solved. And that could be problem with a capital P or a lowercase p. That's what's going to allow people to understand how you think about work. And how you think about work is transferable to all different kinds of projects. The particular material that you chose or the particular incline that a project had to be standing on its own is fine. It's a fact, but it doesn't let a prospective client know why you made that choice and how making that choice improved the overall project or allowed the project to go forward even.
I mean, a special tip in this particular area, especially, like, I would think this applies more to a residential firm if they're thinking of moving up the scale. So maybe you've worked on a kitchen remodel and you're moving up from there to a single family home. That's a pretty reasonable leap that happens very, very frequently. But the leap from single family residential into something else is where sometimes firms can find themselves hitting a roadblock. Well, one of the tricks here that I think is really important is to make the way that you present the work, read like the type of project work that you're going after, and
Mm,
not read like you're still trying to sell to a prospective single family home buyer.
that's a good point.
So the scale, it comes at you in a bunch of different ways. But it's really, really important to think about the scale you're going after and making sure that your work is presented in a way that confidently puts you as a reasonable choice for that larger scale work.
Sort of sound like you're already doing this work.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Or, at least the way that the work looks doesn't look like you're buying a single family home,
right.
or commissioning the services of a single family home, because it may cause that dissonance to really unseat you unnecessarily for a potential commission.
That's a really good point. So the next number 2 in our list of 3, um, is opportunity. So that involves helping other people see how your expertise translates. And so we talked a little bit about that in the scale category, but this is really
Mhm.
a broader thing. So talk a little bit more about that.
Well, one of the challenges that you can run into is that if you're working, let's say you've done a lot of educational work, and that has been the bread and butter of your firm, and suddenly there are different types of institutional work uh, that are out on the marketplace that you want to try and compete for. Well, again, it's showing how the mindset of how you solve those problems relates to the problem at hand that's trying to be solved, and show that that mindset will be of benefit. And go one step further and show how having this experience actually makes you uniquely qualified to solve their problem in a new and unique way, which is always a great way to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's hard sometimes to think about how to bridge that gap between what an architect knows, which is, well, I did this kind of work. I can absolutely do this other kind of work. I know that I can do this. All these things are the same. And a prospective client's view, which is, no, those two things are totally different.
Mhm.
Like a school is totally different from a museum. There's, that's cats and dogs.
Mhm.
There's no way you could do that unless you've done a museum that is the same footprint as the museum that I want to do. Then there's no way that you're qualified to do this.
Yep.
And so what you have to do is really kind of break it down almost like kindergarten style. What are the things that are in common? How is the thing that I worked on like the thing that I want to work on? And it sounds crazy, but you can like whiteboard this, yeah, not in front of the client.
No.
You whiteboard this, you make a list of everything from like, okay, they both require seating for a lot of people. They both require, a certain kind of bathroom. They both have to be ADA accessible. Really break it down from big picture to super granular. And that will help you recognize what you need to focus on in talking to somebody who's not an architect about how these things are similar, because you are going to have to explain it to them in that, maybe not always that level of detail, but close.
I mean, that's such a great point. And I would say to help underscore that for the architecture side of the equation, as an architect, put yourself in the position of buying some other service that you commission for your firm. And you will find, not surprisingly, that you also do this to other firms. So it's really important to go through this process and to evaluate it in exactly the way that we talked about, because this is just part of how things happen.
Well, and even as an architecture firm, think about how you evaluate potential GCs. Think about the things that you look for. And it's much more of a slam dunk if you're looking at multiple GCs and one has done something that looks exactly like what you're trying to do. Um, so, you know, think about what your point is, right? Think about what resonates with you and then do that for other people. So the last one in the 3 is relationships.
Very, and if I was putting them in the most important, this would be actually the most important.
This
Is
entire episode is backwards.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from my perspective, a relationship can help bring you into the fold because they know more about your capabilities beyond what might actually be on the paper.
Yeah.
And so it isn't that you're getting a job that you're not qualified for. It's that um, a person can see what you're capable of beyond what you might have done historically. So a relationship is so, so important. We said it a million times on this podcast, but like it's the relationships are crucial.
It's also often the tiebreaker,
Mhm.
or maybe not even a tiebreaker, like the thing that takes you from being maybe second or third choice to first choice. If somebody there says, look, I know so and so, they vouch for this person, they're such a big fan of this person. They're so nice. They're really great to work with. They've always been really supportive. Prospective clients know that they're really getting into bed with your firm,
Mhm.
and it's going to be for some period of time. They want to know that the people that they're working with are people that they're going to get along with, people that they can count on, people that they can trust. Is hard to discern from a portfolio. And people discount, understandably, in pitch meetings. They know you're putting on your best face. They know you're sending your best people. When you have somebody who says, no, no, in quote unquote real life, this person really is that great,
Yeah,
or I've known them for a really long time, that can and usually does make the difference.
great. So what big takeaways?
Well, so what we didn't discuss,
Oh no,
I know we didn't
jump
discuss,
the gun on the big takeaways.
I know, I'm trying to get out of doing the big takeaways. So the because we're working backwards,
Hmm.
the thing that we didn't talk about yet, but should quickly, is what do you do if you don't know how you want to where you want to go next with your firm? You feel like, okay, we've kind of maxed out in this particular kind of work that we do. We've hit a ceiling. We want to go after something else, but we're kind of deciding between a bunch of different things and we don't know what that thing is. How do you make that decision?
So the same three things apply, and we'll start with the order that we went because why break it now? Which is like first look at your portfolio and look at what you've done and what is reasonably adjacent to what you've done. That's a great place to start. The other is looking for, within the opportunity space, what can be reasonably translated. And it sounds a little bit like the first one, but there is a difference in terms of like if you're in one sector and it's like a slight shift, maybe there's a way to, recharacterize what you've done in a way that is more understandable for that particular prospective client. And of course, evaluate all of your existing relationships. And this is why keeping those relationships built up is so critical over time.
Yeah, because it can be really easy to overlook, oh, we have relationships, a lot of really strong relationships in, you know, a particular state or a particular community or vertical. Let's look at what that would look like because we know these people, we like these people, we'd like to do work for them.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I think it's where I think sometimes firms run afoul is when they don't really take into account any one of these three when they're making an expansion plan, and then they may find that they hit more headwinds, as it were, to finding successful outcomes.
well, and the worst thing that a firm can do, and it's so tempting to do, but the worst thing a firm can do is it hears about something that a competing firm is doing, and immediately now we have to go do that thing.
Yeah,
This thing that we never thought about doing before, never wanted to do before, don't have the people to do, don't have the experience to do, don't really have the will or desire to do, except that it sticks in our craw that this other firm is going to go do that thing.
absolutely,
And you can do that. You can chase that, but it will be to your significant detriment
absolutely.
because you'll drain morale, you'll drain resources, you'll take away from the things that you're good at. Just don't get distracted by what somebody else is doing because you also have no idea why they're doing that thing. And it's not always because that's where the best business is. Okay, so now I'm ready for takeaways.
It's pretty straightforward.
Very
The
straightforward.
like think about the scale, and where you have opportunities from what you have done that might be slightly larger or slightly more involved than what you've done. think about the opportunities, which might be looking at work that you've done in one sector and how it might translate into another. And then the last would be like really evaluating those relationships.
That's perfect.
Really quick wrap up there.
That's really, you make it seem so easy. Everyone should expand, like starting today. This is very simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
Go do it.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining us. We wish you all the luck in all of your expansions, and we will talk to you next time.